Welcome, friends, to episode 254 of Color Magic, your magic gaming podcast where we talk about all types of issues that affect gamers at and away from their gaming tables and computers. I'm your host, PowrDragn, and for 254 episodes, still got my main man who we think his audio is working. Brian Sonic, how's it going, man?
Yeah, I hear you. Do you hear me?
I do hear you just fine.
All
So this
right,
will
then
work.
we are good. Everything, and it is with as usual with these things. I don't know what I did different that made it start working. It just started working.
Dude, that's how technology gremlins work. They just show up and move two things, and you got to play the game to figure it out. You
Right,
know?
like I didn't know why it wasn't working, and then I don't know what made it start. But it's all good now.
Yeah, I got to say, this show is going to be kind of all over the place because we got stuff to talk about with some social media issues with one of the big magic groups. We have some NFL stuff. We've got some video game stuff. Like, there's a lot of little things to cover this week. So hang around because we probably have something for you no matter what you're into this week.
Right.
But yeah, before we get into everything, don't forget you can go to patreon.com/color of magic if you want to support the show. And you get a shout out just like Scott Smith. So thank you for being a patron, friend. And don't forget that also gets you access to a Discord where we have some conversations going on in there as well. And people are even wanting to start to talk about stuff about each week's show in there if you want to do that. But let's get to the first lead story this week. And it got kind of ugly kind of fast on this one. But there's a group or website, I should say, it's topdeck.gg, who has been running a lot of competitive commander stuff. And they were putting together, I guess we'll call it their competitive commander committee or whatever it is. And when people started looking into the members of that committee, Brian, some stuff got uncovered. So why don't you dive into that?
Yeah. First, when I guess the names on the committee were announced, several people noticed that hey, there are no women on this committee. So they asked one of the organizers, "What's up with that?" And the organizer, who went by Zane on social media, basically said, "Well, we didn't want to do something that wasn't merit based." So wait, you're saying that out of all the women in the competitive commander community, zero women have done anything that merits being on the committee? That sounds kind of ridiculous. So then they kind of started diving into, I guess, Zane's social media and noticed that Zane followed a surprising amount of people who, for lack of a better term, were Nazis, white supremacists, people that just openly espouse their hatred of different races and different social groups. And then, okay, so time for some follow-up questions. Zane, why exactly do you follow so many white supremacists on the Twitter? And then Zane deactivated his social media. As you would.
Yeah. And this isn't like well, you might be racist, you might be. It's like if you follow that many people.
Right. We're talking people like Nick Fuentes, known Holocaust denier. And that was but one of the. If maybe you could have effed up and followed somebody, that's crazy by accident.
Oh, sure.
But no, when you follow 10 people or more that espouse these crazy views, and yeah, you at some point it's going to come out, obviously, because we can see who you follow on Twitter or X and
Yeah.
numerous
And
other
and don't
social.
get me wrong, like I probably have somebody in my following or whatever, or that I follow on one of my social media platforms that said or done something stupid. And if somebody points it out, I'd be like, oh, hey, I didn't know about that
Right?
person. Cool. Good to know. Can't do that when there's 20 of them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you have made an effort to follow these people. So that became, and then when you immediately just delete your socials, that's also not a good
That's
look.
pretty much that's not a no. That's not a I'm not
Yeah,
a Nazi. That's
exactly.
I don't want to answer any more questions. Is basically what that reads like.
Yeah. Now the issue is at first glance, Top Deck comes around and earlier today, about a couple of hours ago, posted effective immediately. Zane's no longer part of the Top Deck leadership team. The Boil 2 is also still going to function as normal, blah, 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 blah. Basically saying we're not going to have Zane be part of the things we have coming down the pipe. The problem there, though, is you made a statement that, if you read it real quickly, sounds like, okay,
Yeah,
cool.
they handled this.
Zane's
Yeah.
out of the picture. But if you read what it says Zane is no longer part of the Top Deck leadership team. Not that he's no longer employed, that he's no longer part of the project, that we've discontinued relationships, like any other thing that says, hey, he's no longer part of the business. So what happened then? Everybody starts asking questions. Like, okay, well, what does this actually mean? Is he still going to be on payroll? Is he still going to be
I'm
involved with
proud of
decision
my
making?
Magic social media community. Such excellent follow up questions.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole string of them, and I don't think any of them
Yeah.
have any responses.
So that sounds like Zane still is in the picture somewhere, just not, I guess, out front where it's blatantly obvious. They're
Yeah, so
welcome again to issue any kind of statement that tells us otherwise. We're just answering any of the numerous questions that are being asked on social media. But yeah, the way I mean, it's legalese basically. Like if you just like the quote said, first read, it sounds like they did a good job and they took care of the problem. And just, a little bit pull at the thread a little bit harder. Like, oh no, they didn't say fired, dismissed, no longer associated. Just a not part of the leadership committee. That's a
yeah.
whole different thing than they don't work there no more.
And then I guess there's also somebody in the committee that has been banned from a subreddit. And, it's a mess of a starting situation for them.
And this was the leadership committee. They felt
Yep.
these were the best people, not just to, I guess, make rulings, decisions, but this is the face front, the people that you want to welcome new players into your community. That's who the. And by the way, well, according to Zane, who's now dead with social media, there were no women that would have been better than this. That's wow. Just wow. Because it'd
And
be hard to be worse.
well, that is true. Like, there's a bunch of other things going on right now as well. But, these are the biggest issues. But I do also want to say, like, before people say, well, they had no way to know everything about everybody, whatever. Like, I mostly understand that mindset. But I'm also thinking about when I had my business, when I had a small number of employees, like 6 at a time or so, I knew a lot about every one of those people. Hell, I probably knew more about each of them than they knew about each other. Because I also knew at some point I'm going to have to answer for some stuff that they do when I'm not present. Because that's part of being in charge of the business. So you should be somewhat vetting people that you're going to put on a committee to help make decisions for stuff that you're going to be running events based on, making money, spending money, whatever, because of some of the decisions they're going to make. So
And
that's not really something you can hide behind.
we've already seen how Zane speaks when he's comfortable. He just instantly flip back. Hey, we want to do something that was merit based, and then when called on it, oh wait, let me delete that tweet.
Mm-hmm.
So
And
in when Zane is among friends, they're spouting all kinds of crazy stuff.
and to put this in perspective, same thing with my business. If I had an employee screw up to a level I thought was really unacceptable, I don't just come back and say, like, okay, well, we're just not going to have that employee run magic tournaments anymore. Right? Like, no, we're either going to explain how we're going to correct this behavior outright if they're going to stay part of the company at all, or they're not going to be part of the company. Like, that's how you handle that. You don't just move them off of a project and then they still have that same behavior. Like, that's no good for anybody. So, yeah, I don't know what's going on right now, but this is just a bad situation for topdeck.gg right now. Like, I
And
don't.
it really is crazy what some people have to do to get fired, dismissed, or what have you. That's obviously.
And
And
hell,
for what I understand, Zane is apparently one of the founders or co-founders of Top Deck. So I'm sure there probably is some legal things that may need to happen. Maybe Zane needs to be bought
you know
out.
what
I
though?
don't know.
Remember when Papa from Papa John said that crazy stuff?
Right?
They were like, "You're off the committees. You're not on the chair. We're on the board. We're not going to do like literally. You are here in name only and get to take some investment money. Like that's literally it. They were like, we're not putting up with this.
And then they effectively hired Shaq to replace him as the public face of the company.
Yep. But I mean, hey,
It's
if
a
you're going to
win for
try to,
Shaq.
yeah, exactly. You can try to recoup some PR points. Shaq's a good way to go, though.
Right? Because we're like, Papa John, like, who do we need? A lovable black person.
Yep.
Shaq. Shaq fits the bill.
Damn right. And they paid him a lot of money too.
Gave him his own pizza, which is
But
delicious,
we
by the way.
but we also talked about Dr. Disrespect a couple months back, right? Same thing. He had helped start this video game development company, whatever. He screwed up. They ousted him. So it can be done,
Yeah.
right? If it needs to be, or at least own up and say, yeah, I effed up. I'm going to separate myself from all projects, events, whatever. This is all I'm doing. This is my minimal involvement. Then people go, all right, cool. But until you hear those statements or some direction, I think there's just going to be a lot of questions.
Yeah, and boy, that competitive EDH committee is off to a real impressive start.
Yep. So yeah, not a good look for the community, unfortunately. But all right, let's hop into the soapbox because we at least have something a little more fun to talk about. And this is one, first off, I got to say, it's a good day because it's NFL Eve.
Right.
And for those of you who don't know that may be listening from outside the US, football, biggest sport in America, and it kicks off tomorrow.
And there's a game in Brazil on Friday, so it's expanding.
Yep. Now, that being said, a lot of us do play some fantasy football, and people have different feelings about it. But the more I thought about it, there's been the meme that fantasy football is basically D&D for jocks, right? And it's not really wrong. But to even make fun, let's say if you are into sports or whatever, making fun of people for playing their Magic, D&D, Warhammer, whatever, or you're on the other side and you're a Magic, D&D player, whatever, making fun of the people that like their sports ball, y'all are kind of doing the same things. We'll explain, right? Like D&D is just a bunch of stats. And then you just roll dice and watch the story happen, whatever, and you make moves. Fantasy football, you're doing the same thing. You build your team, you're placing people basically where your stat numbers would be, and then they're their own randomizers. Yeah. And then you're watching the action happen on Thursday, Monday, and Sunday.
You have no more control over what the Dallas Cowboys do than you do over, what the dice rolls say.
But the same thing when we were talking in the pre-show, like you pointed out, even with sports video games, they're basically RPGs if you're playing career modes.
Yeah, because you increase your strength, your speed, and usually they say leadership. That's basically your charisma. It's just basically a rating that where you speak and people say, yeah, sounds good, I'm going to follow you. That's a charisma rating, essentially.
It's literally the same things with different skins on them, right? Some have entry fees, some don't. Some have big tournaments, big championships, whatever. You still get prizes and awards for either one of them. It's the same thing. But we're in this world where it's like, oh, the thing you do is weird.
Right.
But the thing I do is perfectly normal. Right? Like, but when you break it down, there's a lot of similarities. So it's like, why are we taking shots at each other? Everybody's just trying to enjoy their fun. And you know what we like to say? If it ain't bothering anybody, it ain't anything that's morally, ethically wrong, whatever, then who cares? Let people enjoy their thing. It's already bad enough that you have role players that are complaining about the miniatures players and the miniature players complaining about the card gamers. And it's like
people that do Civil War reenactments complaining about LARPers.
Yeah, that one.
The irony. The absolute irony.
That's real. The first time I heard that, I literally side-eyed somebody.
Yeah.
Because I was like, hold up. Like, you don't, like,
like unironically, you don't see.
Yeah, I didn't even know how to approach the conversation. I literally was just like
similarities here.
Because I was going to bring it up, but I'm like, how do I even approach this? Because y'all are literally doing the same thing. Like, I don't like.
No, they're not really an elf. You're not really a Confederate soldier.
Exactly. But it's just terrible that we are in this mindset, and it's so frustrating to see people be mad about it. And hell, I'm going to be in 4 or 5 fantasy football leagues this year of different variety.
Hey, Robbie, I got to put a pin in this because we'll go totally all over time if I do it next week. So where I'll tell you about the time I had to go to a Confederate wedding. It was
that is a story.
Yeah.
Something
to keep stay tuned for, folks.
I do have something fun to go with that as well next week. So y'all have a really fun rant next week because this is going to be a fun double story that I can attach to that. But yeah, I just want to say, like, to kind of wrap it up, is that y'all just need to enjoy what you enjoy. And if you see other people having fun, let them have fun. Like, it's not affecting anybody. They're getting together with their folks who all enjoy whatever their brand of sports ball is, and they're playing their version of D&D sports ball. All right, just let them do it. It's fun. It's silly. It's interactive. It gives them another reason to enjoy what they're watching on TV when their favorite team's losing or whatever. Like, let it be what it is. It's just another variety of entertainment and gamesmanship. That is all. We worry too much about too many things, man. We just got to get over that. But anyway, let's get into what did we learn this week, because there's a couple of different things here and kind of interesting story here. So why don't you start?
Yeah, Black Myth Wukong is out, and apparently is selling all kinds of millions of copies. And even from the tech demo, this looked real like something that could be really incredible. It's launched, and it is incredible. Should be a win for the company. Should be a win for China. But apparently, the Chinese government made them attach some, I guess, guidelines for reviewers saying that, hey, don't talk about feminism, don't talk about politics. You just basically say you're doing what the Chinese government does to its own media, but think you somehow had the authority to do that to anybody else's media.
Oh, they were deep. You couldn't talk about certain parts of the culture. You couldn't mention COVID. You couldn't do, like,
Yeah.
it was like a bunch of random stuff.
It's like, oh, it's okay, Chinese government. What are you gonna do when Kotaku talks about every single one of those things that you
Yeah.
tell them not to? I don't know how they thought that was gonna turn out. I just don't know what they
And here's,
understand. They only govern Chinese media, right? You feel like
well, one thing that people I don't think understand is that some of these things weren't really being developed that much in video games in China, because a lot of video game consoles couldn't even be sold in China for the longest time.
yeah.
Like, they literally wanted to control. I think they said something because they thought it was gonna. They say it was gonna affect the youth's health, but we don't know if that's the real reason or not.
Because well, it's not just young people playing video games. It has been that way for 15, 20 years.
Exactly. So who knows what the real reason? Probably so you have one less form of reaching the internet or blah blah or whatever. Who knows? But that was their main reasoning. So a lot of games weren't real. Like, they were. There's Chinese companies that were funding tech projects outside of the country because you couldn't do much internal. So there's a reason a lot of people were on cell phones or going to LAN centers or whatever to play their video games, because you couldn't really do it at home. And then you get an in-house company, or in border country, I should say, that comes up with a great project. They're like, oh, this is going to be a banger. We're going to make a bunch of money because they're the Chinese government. They're going to get a big chunk of that money. And then decided to just blow it up on PR. And I don't really
All they had to
understand
do
why.
was just sit back, take money, and win. It was
Yeah.
going to be so easy for them.
I mean, what's funny is, had they not made so many demands, people weren't even going to make the connection that it was from a Chinese company. Most people were just going to review the game and not care.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, they introduced all these other things, and then people start going, well, why do they not want us to talk about this? Well, now I need to go look and see why this is a problem or
Because
whatever.
yeah, while there are some sites, like for example Kotaku, that are gonna check to see if there's female or any of the overall majority of video game sites are probably not gonna do anything like that. There's gonna be like,
Oh,
hey,
definitely not.
did I enjoy this game? How are the graphics? That's the majority of video game coverage. So, but now you tell somebody not to talk about something. Well, now you've
Mm-hmm.
ticked us off. So, well, you said, why don't you want to talk about that? Huh? Let's do some more.
But that's exactly it, right? Like, if you just come up to me with an idea, I'm like, all right, cool. And we start talking about it. But then you start mentioning other stuff. I'm like, wait, why are we talking about that now? Like, that wasn't even okay. Hold on a second. You know, right? Now I got to go see why this is so important that you don't want me to talk about it. And that's what creates a lot of their own problems. But I'm with you, dude. I heard in the first couple of days it was like 10 million copies sold or something, like right out of the gate. So
Right.
just like, take your money, dog.
I'm
Just
assuming a Game of the Year nomination will be soon to follow.
yeah. And I will say this: generally, I can look at games and go like, oh, I get why this is a thing. Like, I watched some play of Wukong and just went, all right. So like that's one where I went, obviously it's not for me. There's a part of the gaming community that loves this, and this was built for a whole other group of people. But either way, it's super popular right now.
Right.
So good on them. I don't know after all this blowback how it's going to be. We're talking 6 months from now, but at least right now, enjoy the money. You
Yeah.
know?
I
Yeah.
think
Okay.
people understand that, the developer was pretty much forced to put that in there. There's
That's
no way
true.
they did that of their own their own volition, I don't
Oh,
think.
no doubt. Like they wouldn't want to do that. You just they would just take the money and enjoy it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you haven't been playing standard lately, it's pretty good. And this is what we've been wanting, right? We needed more people to play standard. We need it to be better, whatever. And standard's been pretty hot for about 9 to 12 months now, but recently it's gotten really good after the rotation. But I went to a local spot and I decided, you know what? I'm going to test my theory. If I say it's good, we'll see what type of decks people are bringing. I'm going to go down to a local spot, go play. Lo and behold, I got me a nice little Urza Saga land that's worth a couple $100, and the format was still fun. The tournament was fun. Hell, of all the people who showed up, there was only even 2 decks that I would say were similar, and they were playing different cards. Like all the matches were fun, back and forth interactive. My finals match was against an Otters deck,
Which
and
is
we
just
went,
an awesome thing to be able to say.
yeah, exactly. And we went back and forth in 3 games. The third game, we must have went, hell, 10, 12 turns or whatever back and forth. And it was really close. And it was fun for everybody to watch. And I'm like, this is what you want, right? Like now, I'll say this for their store championship events, they don't have standard legal cards right now. So that's like a weird thing. But I was thinking about this because we talked about this even with the players afterwards. By having some higher value non standard stuff, you're at least getting people who wouldn't otherwise play standard to try to come out and get it, right? So they're going to build some standard decks to come play. And maybe you start building that culture again in the stores because they do have like the weekly tournaments, I think now, or the standard showdowns, I think is what they're calling them, where you're gonna, I believe it started last week, where you can start getting the Cowboy Bebop art cards that they have. There's like one every 4 weeks or something that you can play for in your local store every month, basically. So those are gonna start getting people interested because those look sweet. And I'm not even like the biggest Cowboy Bebop fan, but I'm like, yeah, these are kind of dope. So I do appreciate what they're doing in that regard. I do still think they need to, in the winter or spring, make some standard whatever we used to call those decks that like you can just walk in, spend $30 and get basically 90% of a standard deck. You know, I think that's what they need to do. At least get 3 or 4 decks in a package and you can come pick one. And I think that'd be a quick way to get people to jumpstart the way right into standard to make it a little easier on folks. But overall, I just gotta say, if you think standard's bad or you are trash talking standard right now, you haven't played a standard tournament recently. That's the only thing I can think of. Because like everybody I know, low skill level, high skill level, whatever, that is playing regularly, will tell you how varied the format is. And you can play almost any type of deck, and you can build whatever you want, and everything has a shot at least. And you can't ask for much more than that, right? Where you can just build around weird cards. You can build hell 20 different creature themed decks right now. Like
Right.
those are things you can build enchantment based stuff, graveyard stuff, things with a bunch of artifacts. Like hell, and there's even affordable like $50 to $70 decks you can build, and there's still the crazy $400 decks you could build. Right? There's everything in between. So just like, yeah, man, standard's dope. I'm probably gonna be playing at least 2 more store championships. I'll probably run this deck back one more time, and I'll probably be building another one because I have parts just sitting on my desk right now that I'll put together, probably like a mono green thing or something, and then go play that. But yeah, good times right now. If you want to see the decks, I've got it over on YouTube. Yeah, just lots of stuff, man. Standard's great right now. That's all I can say about it. But let's get into a few topics here. Now, I came across a weird thing because it was a little bit of a light news week, and I was like, let me see if I can find some fun, just game related stuff that's out there. I came across something I definitely did not expect to see. There was a Minecraft movie trailer. Now, that in and of itself doesn't surprise me because Minecraft is one of the most recognizable brands probably on the planet at this point. obviously one of the biggest money makers for Microsoft. So I was like, okay, I guess it was about time. Hell, we got a Five Nights at Freddy's. Why not a Minecraft movie, right?
Right.
But then I'm watching this trailer, and it's like kind of Jumanji esque, where these four people somehow get teleported into this Minecraft game. I'm like, okay, but it's still set like you're in Minecraft. It's like a fully CGI'd 3D Minecraft world, I guess is one way to describe it. But you have the real people in it. So I'm like, all right, I guess that's one way you can go about this. And you see the little like weird pig things, they're all still square faced and everything. They still all still look like they're Minecraft, just 3 dimensional, I guess. It's weird. But then out of nowhere, they just run into Jack Black. Like he's just there. And there's like, who are you? He's like, I'm Steve. All right. Like, why is Jack Black just randomly hanging out in a Minecraft thing? I'm sure it's part of the movie, and we'll find out Steve is probably some,
Oh
I don't
yeah,
know.
Steve. I think is the main character, I believe.
Yeah. So he'll be something to help push the movie. But Jack Black apparently going to be in the Minecraft movie, a
All
live
video
action.
game movies must have Jack Black. That's the law.
I mean, he was dope in Jumanji,
Yeah.
like for real. The most recent one where he had to
And
play
Super
the
Mario
woman.
Brothers. I mean, Super Mario
Oh, he
Brothers
was
is
in that.
yeah, he's Bowser. I mean,
Yeah,
he carried that movie to a large extent.
man. Yeah, he is doing a lot of those. Now you mention it.
Borderlands, which I'm sure he's trying to just kind of wash the wash
Yeah,
the stench of Borderlands off of his.
I don't know anybody who even saw Borderlands who likes Borderlands.
Yeah, I don't think anybody did. And the irony is that Jamie Lee Curtis is in it, and she had been making fun of the Marvel movies, and then it drops that on an unsuspecting populace. Like,
How are you going to make fun of the Marvel movies and then
ooh,
go do a movie for a property that's obviously lesser than the Marvel stuff?
ooh,
Like that, you just set yourself up for that. That was just a
yeah.
big karma truck.
I think she's apologized since then because she.
Though we did see last week that was not the biggest bomb. Biggest bomb was the new Crow movie.
We didn't need a new Crow movie, which
No,
is
I
the
think they
first one
said it
was
was
so
like a
great.
$50 million budget. Opening week was 4.5 million.
Yeah, it'll be on cable here next week.
Yeah, that's rough.
Which
That's rough,
I think
dude.
Borderlands done streaming already. That's how bad that would do.
Yeah, but dude, you don't even break 5 million in your opening week, and you got a big budget movie. Like,
Yeah, for essentially a comic book movie where this is you
ah.
had to spend a huge. We just
I mean, to be fair, I'm with you. When I saw it, I literally my first thought was why. Like, nobody's asked for this. You
the
didn't
first
run
one
back.
was already iconic, and that was before Brandon Lee got killed.
Yeah,
That just
like I don't understand. And my understanding is they didn't even use anybody from the original movie, like actors, directors, nobody involved was from of the original. So like, it was a weird thing to even do anyway. Because hell, at least when they're running back Beetlejuice, you went back and got like Michael Keaton, you went and got like all the old actors or whatever to still like tie them together, you know? So it's like, all right, cool. But yeah, so Minecraft, if you're a fan, guess what? You're getting a Minecraft movie and you get Jack Black. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Just
at this
weird.
point, if you're a fan of any video game, just wait. You'll be getting a movie. Any video game's even remotely popular.
That's probably true. Now, okay, let's sidetrack for a second. What have we not gotten a movie of that should be popular enough to get a movie?
I mean, we haven't gotten a live action Castlevania. And probably we got a
Oh,
lot
that's
of
true
anime.
because we had that animated thing on
Yeah.
Netflix or whatever.
So I figure
Yeah,
at some
that would
point
be
we'll
an
get
easy
Castle.
one.
Yeah, at
It's kind
some
of
point we'll get
surprise.
that, I think.
Yeah, that's a good call. That's weird that we don't have that yet. I mean, Diablo.
Yeah, that's
I
definitely
mean,
one that
that'd be a good, easy one to do a movie of. You got like hell, 20 years of history or whatever to pick from to do a
we can
thing.
make a good World of Warcraft movie. It seems like that should be easy to do, but they didn't do it.
I'm gonna say so. I didn't hate that movie. I'm not gonna say it was top tier,
Yeah.
but like I actually didn't hate it as much
And
as
for a
everybody
World of
else.
Warcraft movie, you want if that's done right, that could be Lord of the Rings, essentially, which is what they, I'm sure, were thinking when they approved the budget. But then it didn't. It
Yeah,
didn't hit
that's
like
fair.
that.
Though, if I remember right, the World of Warcraft movie actually did better internationally than domestically by a significant margin for some reason. I don't know if it's just the property has more value elsewhere or whatever. I don't know. I just remember seeing the numbers and thinking that was kind of weird. But yeah, I'm trying to think of other games that I mean, obviously you could do like, Grand Theft Auto, whatever, something in that genre. Like those would probably work. But yeah, I'm trying to think because I mean the thing is, if we did Super Mario Brothers, I mean, like in
Right? You would think
Minecraft,
anything is possible.
yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to think like what else is really popular right now because you do
There
have
was
like,
actually a bidding war for the Need for Speed rights because everybody thought this will be our Fast and the Furious. Then they did it, and no,
oh, I forgot that was even a thing.
everybody did.
Yeah, that's rough. It's like
Yeah.
as soon as you said it, I went, yeah, that was a thing that happened. I mean, Fortnite. If you're doing Minecraft, now I imagine the rights to Fortnite would have to be insane. I don't know what that would even cost you,
Well, I
but
mean, they're Epic's partners with Disney now, so whatever it
oh,
costs, they
that's
should be able to
true.
afford it.
Yeah, maybe. I
Although you
mean,
could
so that's
argue Ready Player One was almost a Fortnite movie because Fortnite has basically become the
yeah,
game in Ready Player One where everything is in there.
that's true. There's also some stuff too that was on the fringes, like No Man's Sky and stuff like that,
Yeah.
that you could probably turn into a movie or movie TV series. Hell, I'm honestly surprised with how deep Eve is that hasn't gotten some type of production property alongside it. Because, dude, like when I talk to people who actually play that game, because I looked at it one time and I thought about it and immediately walked away. I'm like, this is just like spreadsheets, the space opera. Like I can't. Like, dude, they were literally like, this thing is going to generate this much credits or whatever they call their gold, and then there's this thing, and then you need to be here so you can repair your ships, and then there's this thing, and then apparently there's like galactic battles with like
Yeah.
hundreds and thousands of ships at one time. Like I watched somebody's footage on a nice computer that was like skipping because there was so much on the screen. And I'm like, this
Right?
is insane. Like, this is so wild. So yeah, there's a lot there. Like, I don't know how big that community still is, but apparently there's enough people in there that it's still heavily active. So yeah, I think we have a lot of properties that we could use to make movies up. Like, it's easy to look and go like, ah, man, they've exhausted everything. We're getting down to a Minecraft movie. But it's like, no, we haven't even really scratched the surface on a bunch of stuff we could do
I'm
right
sure
now.
Dead by Daylight is going to be a movie at some
Oh,
point
that's a good one. Yeah, you could turn that into one very easily.
because horror movies are essentially superhero movies in terms of you
Yep.
just if you do a halfway decent job, just set it in Halloween and let the money come in.
Yeah, and a lot of those are lower budget. So you can do those for 20 million, so it doesn't even take a lot. So like, yeah, there's some stuff we could still do. We haven't really even got close to exhausting all of the video game movies we could do. But speaking of, we're kind of, bringing up horror stuff here because Halloween's only about 6 weeks away now. But we have Dustmorn around the corner. And it's brought up some interesting things about how you release sets for a product. Because we just did Bloomborough that was bright and colorful and woodland creatures and all these animals working together and all this. And then we go into Dustmorn that's this creepy haunted house and it's possessed by a demon and all the artwork's creepy with stuff coming out of things and heads on arms and weird stuff, right? It's like I don't know who decided that.
Everybody doesn't have a head on their arm. Is that just me?
Oh, dude, there's head like teeth in their chest and on their neck. Like, there's so many weird things going on in the artwork in Dustmar, but it's meant to be
Yeah.
creepy, disembodied, spirits and ghosts and whatever. But it did make me question, you know, is it good to do something so polar opposite back to back, or should they have been spread out? Like, obviously, time will tell. But it's an interesting idea because I almost feel like if we'd have had more time with Bloomborough, let it play out another 4 or 5 weeks, then introduced us more, and I don't think it would have felt as jarring because you
Yeah,
would
I
have
think
had
the
enough
problem
time.
is the problem is not so much the dissonance between the two sets; it's the fact that we're getting so many sets back to back.
Yeah, and I think that's where I'm at because I feel like there isn't enough time to really absorb and kind of release and let it play out all the stuff from Bloomborough. Right? We're just getting to the point where people are just starting to peak with the different decks that you can build or whatever with all the stuff from Bloomburrow. And we've already started the previews for Dustborn because it comes out at the end of the month. So it's like we only are really going to have about 10 weeks with Bloomburrow, which is very, very short for a set that has turned out to be extremely popular. And I still kind of have my tinfoil hat on, but I almost feel like they set this up because when they did the initial schedule, they weren't sure how the community was going to respond to this cutesy whatever, right? But then it turns out they responded phenomenally positive, and now
How
you
were they
already have
not
this.
sure?
What's that?
You don't think they were sure that this is gonna? I know I was always like, yeah, this is gonna bang. There's no way this doesn't bang.
I would personally, I had like this has a reasonably high chance of success, but I don't know if internally the right voices or whoever thought the same. Now, I don't have a way to say that they did or they didn't, but that is a reason I think you can go, all right, we'll put this right behind it. So if people don't like this, we'll get this more, we'll call it serious adult themed looking thing right behind it. So we don't lose
Well,
those
that and it's
people.
Halloween. You're gonna do a
Yeah.
spooky
Yeah.
set. You want to do it in Halloween.
But even then, we could have put the release closer to Halloween, right? We could have put it the week before or whatever. But we end up putting it basically the last week of September, first week of October. And we could have given 2 more weeks and still had a week or two leading up to Halloween and give more time with Bloomburrow. So, and you would have still been in time for MagicCon Vegas because MagicCon Vegas is the last week. It's the basically pre-Halloween weekend, right? So it would have still fallen in the right window. So that's the only reason I asked that. But it is interesting because the next set is going to be a death race set, which will kind of appeal, I'm assuming, to some of the same people that like Dustmorn or whatever to be in that vein. And then we revisit Tarkir, I think is what they have. So we're going to go back to an old Magic world everybody already is familiar with and likes because there's a lot of dragons. And then we get they made it sound like a Star Wars space opera type thing, will be the next set. And then we revisit Alara, which we haven't done in, I don't even know, what is that, 8 years? Like it's been a long time since we did Shards of Alara. It's longer than that, I think. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out because even among the stuff next year, we still have those 2 mega sets from the universes beyond, with Final Fantasy and with Marvel, which we know those are going to dominate dollars and headspace, honestly. Like, it was crazy when we were talking about this last year, and we're like, well, obviously they're going to have the biggest year ever, and Lord of the Rings is so great, and it's they're going to have these huge numbers. And then they come out and they did whatever it was, 1.3 billion or whatever. Now, admittedly, some of that is also you got some licensing money from Baldur's Gate 3 and all that, which apparently Baldur's Gate 3 is still out there banging right now. And we're like, well, I don't know if they're going to be able to compete with that in 2024 or whatever. And then like almost everything this year is sold fantastic. So it's like, okay, well, maybe. And then next year, it's like, that's going to be, I'm going to be stunned if 2025 isn't bigger than 2024.
Yeah, Final Fantasy and Marvel, you would think it's going to be huge.
Yeah, Final Fantasy, I'm putting money. They will probably almost sell as much of that in Japan for sure, but probably a big chunk of Asia as they do in the US. Like that set's going to do fantastically well. So it's just like, then what do you do in 2026? Because all the investors and the higher ups and whatever, and all the stock folks are gonna be like, well, you got to do better than next year, even if it's just 2%. You got to do better than last year. And it's like, what else are you gonna do? Like those are going to be 2 of the biggest properties outside of maybe I don't know Star Wars or Star Trek or something. But even then, I'd argue Marvel's probably still bigger than those right now.
Yeah, there's.
So it's like, where do you even go? I mean, obviously you do another Marvel set, but I don't know what you're gonna stack on for the nerds. It's gonna be better than Final Fantasy. So I'm like, 2026, crazy as it sounds, might be a down year, and it's still probably gonna be over $1 billion. That's where Wizards is right now with these Magic sets. It may not even matter what order they release stuff in. Like that's the crazy part. Like I'm analyzing it, but the reality is it just might not even matter. I mean, like seriously. It's just there's so many players and the game is so good and it gets so much press right now. You can't really ignore it. I mean, I'm still running into people that are in their 40s just trying to learn Magic for the first time. Right? I still have people showing up in my comments on YouTube going, "Oh man, I just picked the game up 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. Like, it's cool. Can you point me in the direction of this or what does this mean or whatever?" So I don't know if it ever slows down. I mean, and we keep coming back to people are saying, "Well, Wizards keeps doing everything they can to kill the game and there's too many sets." I was like, I want to agree that there's too many sets, but when they all sell, like, what do like, is it too many? I don't know. I really don't know. Because my rule, you can bitch all you want, but if you're bitching while handing over $20 bills,
Well, yeah.
they're going to keep doing the same thing. Right. And if we keep buying cards and new people keep coming in the fold to buy more cards, well, they're going to keep making the same number of sets because why would they make less? Well, I say that, except for like Aftermath and the other little set with Assassin's Creed because those don't work. We've proven that
Well, we
twice
knew
now.
Assassin's Creed was probably going to be,
The weak link.
yeah,
Yeah.
the game may not even sell. Like, Ubisoft stock is down because they're not, well, partially because Star Wars Outlaws looks like it's going to tank, and then because they're not sure that Shadows is going to do any better, so they may have two really not so good games back to back. Or in terms of money, when I hear about the reviews of Star Wars Outlaws, not bad, but Star Wars likes to cost you way a whole lot of money, and they may not make it back.
But dude, we've talked about this before though, right? There are so many good properties. Hell, even at this point, legacy properties in pretty much every type of nerddom, whether you're talking about role playing games, video games, miniatures, card games, whatever, that those are always drawing people and always getting the press at this point. Like, it's hard to compete as a new product unless you have just the game, and sometimes
And
you do.
Star Wars isn't even new. It's Star Wars. I guess you
I
say it's a new
know,
character, but
but it's like your game, even if it's good, has to be beyond great at this point. You because Baldur's Gate literally changed the game for RPGs. And like that's how it got to the top. The only thing I know right now, and we talked about this, like the only guaranteed game I can think of right now that's I'm gonna say probably released in the next couple of years is Grand Theft Auto 6. Like, and that's been had people waiting on it for over a decade at this point. So
we got College Football 25 before we got Grand Theft
yeah.
Auto 6.
It's like I told you, we got Joe Tessitore announcing Monday Night Raw before we got GTA 6. So like the world is changing. But all right, let's wrap up this dinner table right quick with a fun question because we are toward the end of the season for big conventions. Usually Labor Day weekend, you have Dragon Con, you have PAX West, some other regional stuff. But that got me wondering because I don't even know if I know this answer for you. But what is one, your favorite convention or event or multiples of the year and why?
Well, DreamHack is the only one I got to, so I guess it would be my favorite.
That's fair. That's fair. I would say, obviously, Magic Cons have been fun. Those are almost work events for me at this point. But I haven't been to Gen Con in a few years, but I do still really, really like it. Mostly just because of the ability to do stuff endlessly. Right? Like if I literally have like a 45-minute break, a 2-hour break where I can just go look into the schedule and in that 2-hour window there's like 45 events. Like I literally just like, oh, okay, cool. I'm interested in seeing a new demo on a thing or this person speak about this or this artist demo or whatever. There's something everywhere. Like I think that's the only convention I've been to where I felt like there was nonstop things for me to do. Like to the point that I tell people, if it's your first time at Gen Con, it's going to feel overwhelming, but go online, look at their schedule, and at least plan out 2 things you want to do every day. Because if you don't, you will just wander and look at everything, and then you get to the end of the weekend, and you're like, when did that happen? Oh, I could have done what? And I missed this, and I missed that. And even planning, there's still times you get done with Gen Con, and one of your friends is like, oh man, did you get one of these? And you're like, where was that? Like you don't even know,
Right?
like where was, oh, it was in this other room, or it was upstairs, and or did you hear about this thing that happened? You're like, when did that happen? Oh, like 20 minutes ago. But that's how big it is. So that will always probably still be at the top for me, I think. But I enjoy some of the other shows for different reasons. I think they're all have benefits, but it's hard to replicate that for Gen Con. And they have a relationship with the city of Indy now, and they get to use, hell, this year they used Lucas Oil Field and put all the board gaming stuff there. So it was literally just tables and tables of board game stuff, vendors, whatever, just all the board games in that space. So it's just a different experience than you're going to get going to a lot of other events.
Yeah.
And if you haven't been to Gen Con, it's worth it to go at least once. You know, take the family. There's a lot of war history if you want to go to museums and stuff in the city of Indy. You know, there's a couple of local good game stores, candy shops nearby. Like it's a good little tourist city. It's not bad. But all that being said, Brian, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you on the social media machines?
All right. I am Brian Tonic on Twitter, YouTube, and you can read my writing over at GameSighted.
Yeah, go check that out. Boy needs to get paid. But you can find me everywhere at PowrDragn, PowrDragn. And if you want stuff on Dustmorn, follow me on YouTube because there's going to be a lot coming down the pipe in the next 2 weeks. Everything from what you should craft or not, or decks you should build or not. Like, we're going to have a bunch of stuff going up. But as always, wherever you're watching or listening, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Please remember to take care of yourselves and your family. Remember to be awesome, but most importantly, be awesome to each other.